Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned into the vault. Trust Christian owned, not to control everything. Just want to thank you for tuning in live, listen to replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listens in the replay. This is the vault, episode 339. Sunday Trustee Training. Might have to shorten that up in the title. Trustee Training, Private Conference Review, December 24, 2024, Part 2. So for trustees that have enrolled in the training, they're going to benefit greatly from this. If someone has not gone through trustee training, you can reach out Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, it's Christian at trustchristian.com. Look forward to hearing from you. So we're going to hop right into it because this is a part 2 to the part 1. If you haven't heard the previous episode, you want to just go to the previous episode, episode 638. Sunday Trustee Training. It's not Sunday Trustee Training on that episode, but this one is. So this one we're going to do Sunday Trustee Training. We're going to talk about it, ladies and gentlemen. It's pretty much going to be a can Trust Christian wing it? Why do we need to wing it? Because when we see the landscape right now from the event, it's always the lone gunslinger. And what's the importance of these events? Well, we could just say that if you don't want to be in the right place at the right time with the right people, how are you going to get the right things done? And this is a hard pill to swallow. Why? Because many are with their quote unquote families right now. When people at the conference had their family, it was a family event, it was a private family event. They say, oh, Trust Christian, I got to be the lone soldier out there getting the research and development. Well, that's what Trust Christian and the Vault does. That's what we provide to our trustees is the resources. These resources. You like to develop your resources, correct? We have to expand our resources. So this is you. It was an interesting conference to do a part 2 to the review it. Be really simple. Double down on your team. Double down on your story. Don't know how important your story is until you tell it, and you tell it over enough times where you have people either critique it or you have investors say they're in. And a lot of people we can see in the landscape publicly the 80-20 rule. 80% they don't believe in their dream. So if you're in the top 20%, you're believing in your dream. You're focused on telling your story. Uh, that was something that we saw as a theme. A lot of investors really want to know the story behind what you're asking money for. So interestingly enough, we sat on the line the other day. Actually, it's later in the week, and we were in there with some real estate investors, and these guys, they actually said they want to come in and own and operate the business. So they were clearly looking to buy out a particular business, and they wanted a company that had a good proven business model, which it did. It had over 10 years of operating experience, and they bought the owner out. And it's interesting because when we talk to our trustees and we say behind closed doors, we sat in first class, business class, whatever you want to call it, and you talk to people that are in private equity and they say, yeah, we're taking owners out and they're not going to stay in the company past 30 days. Is that a lot of pre-planning before they buy the owner out? Sure. They had a due diligence process. They bought him out. But the owner doesn't stay on longer than 30 days. So when people think about their baby, they're like, oh man, I just need some extra capital. These guys were like, we'll give you the 15 million or more. We just don't want you around. And so this is where, early stage investors, that's what they're called, are called shark bait. You're called shark bait if you're on the receiving end of what they call now VCs, angels. And so we sat in a room with, once again, endowments that sat on stage, or in the room or environment. Uh, it's a stage meaning that you always have like people standing up and talking about their vertical, talking about their pitch. What else was said? The biggest thing is people think they need to know everything and they don't need to know everything. Uh, that's something that a lot of people think they need to know. And you know, when a lot of the trustees go back and listen to what we're going to provide to them, they're going to see that a lot of the time it's about your team and really just can you guys execute. That's really what it comes down to. They want to know how nimble you are, how nimble you are. The They almost want to say how the ability for you to pivot, but we at the Vault would prefer to call it nimble, because you do have to be nimble or adaptable to various situations that may come up in the model. So this was an interesting conference. If we could get behind closed doors with you all and show you the camera sitting on our chest, trustees that are still listening, you all would know what time it is. You'd be walking around a room on Trust Christian's chest, sitting there just saying, wow, you're meeting these people, you're having very direct conversations, you're having very planned out conversations, you're going in with a mission, you're going in with a conversation that's a very specific need to know basis. And interestingly enough, when you are on purpose in these environments, it's almost like the money came to you. Because it's interesting. If we could bring on people that we've already talked to after the event, they'll tell you it was a lot more aggressive. Why? Because it's finance. Usually people in finance are a little bit more aggressive. We don't want to call them stiff, but aggressive. They're walking up to you, hey, what are you here for? What are you investing in right now? Do you have a fund? And that was a theme that we heard. We could talk about that. And we're not going to even belittle it because the T of the day is starting a fund, trustees. So you want to hear Trust Christian involved with the fund mentality? First of all, a lot of the funds are funded off pedigree. This is one of the first things these investors are going to look at, which means your track record. And they don't want to hear that you're just building one within the past 1 to 3 years. It's just being honest with you guys. People say, oh, are you serious, Trust Christian? What do you mean? We're just starting out. The ones that are just starting out, we'll get to that conversation. The ones that are still less than, whew, man, in the private environment, these guys don't want to tell you. They're not trying to give you any money. They don't want to give you any money unless you got more than $10 million in assets. They would just want to rip your baby from you if you got a good one idea. This is the private sector, ladies and gentlemen. People think it's real easy and cozy. Oh, I'm about to come over here with the private guys and just put out bonds. I mean, it's not like these guys don't hold bonds. Ladies and gentlemen over here are holding bonds in the private sector. So back to the focus. The focus is okay. Well, we're in the private sector. How much money do we really need supposedly for these guys to give us consider giving us even more than 10 million, like, and you hear them talking. I mean, it sounds real good. But when you get close to them, these guys are institutional investors. It means they have over $100 million. And it's not like 100 million minimum. It's like a 200. And then there's billionaires, and we have billionaires in the room, and multi-billionaires. And when you hear them speak about the level of investment, I mean, it's all we could almost say the higher you go, the more charitable they are. You want to hear that one? Oh, no one wants to hear that. Yeah. So you could say the richest man in Babylon's a good one for you, but it's not. Why? Because that you got to know how money works in the 21st century. So here we go. You say, oh, Trust Christian Revolt. Oh, what is this gap that we're bridging between 900K? And that's not even a consideration, ladies and gentlemen. If you have 900K in assets, these guys are going to tell you to go get a bank loan. They want to know how much skin you have in the game. This is the conversation we have. Oh, well, how much skin do you have in the game? They don't always ask you how much equity, but they do ask you what is the capital stack. And so when we're in these environments, ladies and gentlemen, the conversations are very jargony. They're very acronymed. People say, "Oh, I'm gonna be in a private wealth environment." What's wealth? The definition of wealth is a minimum of 30 million. Generational wealth, what you got? 50 million? Generational wealth? What does these numbers look like? What do the numbers look like for you? Because in these environments, we can say right now, without a shadow of a doubt, trust Christian in a vault. We sat in a room recently and have talked to institutional investors directly. And we always ask them the minimum because that's like one of the trick questions. No one's going to say, oh, this is my max. So we ask them the trick question. What's your minimum investment? What's your minimum? They may say, I don't want to, like, for example, some of them will only really want to do, we'll say, like on the light side, 50,000 for an early stage entrepreneur. They'll give you $50,000, $100,000. That's light. $200,000. That's light. If you want to go a little bit higher, say half a million. That means it's a quality tech business traditionally, maybe in healthcare. These are some of the industries we're seeing that they're funding. These are the conversations that we're having. Once again, those are the conversations that are coming up. So, okay, do you have a tech idea? Do you need 500,000? Well, some people say, "Oh, I need a million." When they see that number, they think it's a red flag. We're going to say this in the public. We're going to be the first ones in the public to say this traditionally. Why? Because it's not something investors want to hear. They don't want to hear, "Oh, I just need $1 million." If you need a million, you might as well say you need two or three. There's not legal advice, financial advice. We're just talking from the perspective that we have asked questions. And ladies and gentlemen, the investors that we sit in a room with traditionally in the private sector, they're saying they don't really want to do anything less than 10. But they'll tranche it out because they're willing to not give you everything at once. If you need 10 million, they give you a million right now. Go build the building and the facility. Let's see how this starts. And traditionally, if say you need 10 million, they may only give you a million. And then you got to go get the other 9 million from some other investors. So what we see in the environment is man, ladies and gentlemen, if you all knew, it's very investor friendly right now. It's very entrepreneur friendly too. The market is like wide open. It's a very hot market, very warm market, very exciting market, and that's where we are. This is one of those ones where you all will be able to see over the next 12 months, the institutions are already back in the water. They're back investing. We can say that right now without a shadow of a doubt. The institutional investors privately are investing privately. If you don't see the public markets get in for like 4 to 6 months, we know why. It's because they're going to usually lag 4 to 6 months behind, possibly 2 to 3, maybe 4 to 6 months behind the private market. The private market right now is jumping in head first, feet first, cannonball. No doubt about it. We can say that without a doubt about it, ladies and gentlemen. And that's a fact. And it's going to be easy over this period of time to see that as they think the Fed's going to lower rates, as people in the public think the Fed's going to lower rates, is going to be a very interesting play. Uh, we're not going to call out public plays, but when we talk about in the private sector, it's hot. What do you say? Oh, is the investment there right now? Why wouldn't the investment be there right now? It doesn't have to be an office. Everybody knows that. They're also thinking about plays in other sectors outside of what people consider real estate. Even at the event we went at, we heard a good sentiment that it was a lot of real estate, and that's cool too. I mean, it's where you see a lot of wealth at. But you see a lot of what people try. Well, yeah, it was a lot of real estate plays. Even the ones that you consider real estate funds. Oh, I'm doing a real estate fund. It's like a fund. That means you have capital in there. And it's just interesting, ladies and gentlemen. You got to hear. Okay, here we go. We'll give you the sweet spot for today since we're 15 minutes in. If you listen this long, you deserve this gym. So, investors, private, they're thinking about their exit. What's your exit? They're thinking about their exit. We heard this even recently on one of the real estate calls we got on recently outside of the conference. They said we're thinking about getting in, getting our exit. We're short-term capital. We said okay. We're sitting there. We're asking them, well, what's short-term capital? Short-term capital that they're providing is 12 months or less. They're not giving out any capital that they're going to be extended out more than 12 months, but they're looking for a return to either. These are multiple returns, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking more, for sure more than 2 to 3x. That's minimums. They're giving out short-term debt. They're doing debt. People call it private credit now. There's a difference between equity and credit, ladies and gentlemen. So when we talk about the debt, they're giving out debt. That means they're giving out capital, liquid cash for their debt, and they're getting points on it. And we think they were probably charging about the 12 points. Now you think about that. 12 points. 12 points. It's more than 8 points. 400 basis points, 300 basis points in the private sector right now. That's what's going on. The private sector is able to charge 2 to 300 basis points on capital. That's what we hear. Oh, we're able to get there. You think they're not trying to squeeze out 4 points? Where's the normal? They call it SOFR. It used to be called LIBOR. Where are we at right now? We're going to go in the market and do y'all a favor today. We're going to find out what's SOFR. All right. The secure overnight financing rate right now, as of the 12th, is 4%. So that means if you went to the bank, that's what they should charge you is a minimum 4% on your money. Okay, great. Well, these guys are charging over 8 points. They're getting a 400 basis point on top of that with another 400 basis point. And that's the game that you see that's being played out here in the private sector. It's a lot going on out here, ladies and gentlemen, that a lot of people aren't aware of right now. But once again, when you are in the know and people are making it a point to invest in their private education, then you can see there are opportunities in sectors 300 and 400 basis points on the capital. It's that simple. This is going to be a great episode for the trustees that go back and listen, especially the ones that listen to thoroughly. We appreciate you all for listening, tuning in live, listening to replay. Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, it's Christian at trustchristian.com. Look forward to hearing from you all. This was one of those episodes we had to do a part two to, because there's so much to unpack from that first event. You're able to walk around and see the different characters. What's your dream? What do you have that needs to be invested in? Private investors have private charities. Come on, they got private charities. People say, oh man, I'm moving in the private sector, trust Christian, but we didn't see you in there getting the private money. Sometimes we do. Shout out to the new people that's listening to the podcast because of the meeting Trust Christian at the Wealth Conference. It's real simple, ladies and gentlemen. It's called private education. You got to invest in it. And that's just being honest. When you invest in your private education, the results that you're looking for are inevitable. And we would say it's about writing your goals down. We could say it's a lot of things, all right. And you having a routine. At the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, we know that it's about association. And they said, even sitting in the room, one of the mentors, the guy that was holding the event, people are 16 times more likely to do a deal with you if you meet them face to face. How could you not get out the house? That's like taking 16 meetings in one day. It's interesting, ladies and gentlemen. Shout out to Trust Christian in the Vault and the trustees that have come through looking to make their dreams come true. And maybe same to you. Because, ladies and gentlemen, that time, what they say, all tide, or what you say, what all tide raises all ships. You know that saying, y'all know those sayings out there. Or what rising tide raises all ships. Yeah, the rising tide is the rising tide. The rising tide is your mindset. The rising tide is your mindset for sure. You got trustees that immediately wanted to invest in their private education when they found out Trust Christian Evolve was going to that event. Said Trust Christian Evolve, let me find out about that education. Tune me into that. Trustees, what y'all want to know? Y'all gonna type into the chat what y'all want to know. What what could you get out of that event that said, give me the top three things that you got from that Trust Christian Evolve? Well, first thing is, here we go. We give y'all the basics going into the new year as a KPI for yourself. Here's the KPI status quo. When you go into the environment, everybody says you gotta get something, but first thing you gotta give. You gotta give your time. You gotta give your money. But okay, we say give. Okay, so you give your ear. You have two ears, one mouth. We go into these environments and we learn. We gotta go in with the student mentality. What's our student mentality that day? What's our student mentality in general at that event? The student mentality when you hear the leaders, when you heard the leader, one of the ladies, this man's over 40, this man's worth, got over $40 billion. Assets under management says, oh, Trust Christian in the Vault. I was a bad student. Everybody thinks you need to be this, you need to be that. No, you got to just get to work. He still built the team. You got to build a team. They overshadowed his weaknesses. People think, oh man, I gotta be this, I gotta be that. Maybe you just need to be your vision. Your vision. Be your vision. Be your vision. What is your vision? You're already in the 1% because you have a vision. They say, how can you think out 100 years for your family? You think about it. You're looking to put together generational wealth. That means you're thinking out 2, 3 generations at least. That 2, 3 generations is at least 100 years. You got 50 years, 25 years a generation, 25 years a generation, 25 working years. Good, solid working years. Peak your working years. Okay, great. Generational wealth. How many times can you do it? How many times? Well, when it comes to writing out that vision plain upon tablets, it seemeth that though many may not have it. So it's up to ye to take care of that. you know, it's one of those plays here because we can clearly see that even in the wealth environment, heavy student mentality. You can judge yourself every day or however often on student mentality. Uh, there was definitely a question and answer for many of these individuals that have the opportunity to speak, and they'll say, "Oh, you gotta have affirmations." Definitely, they'll say you gotta have affirmations. So it's one of those things for sure. Um, what else we'll say? A lot of the things that we already said at the beginning of the episode, whether it's your story, whether it's your team, uh, much of them didn't say anything about your clothes, but if you all would trust Christian behind closed doors, walking with him on a chest, you will see what we say after we see certain people because you see what's going on, ladies and gentlemen. People are looking you right in front of your face and they're looking you in your eyes. And they're wondering, are you for real? Do you need more than $10 million? Do you need more than $2 million? Do you need this money that you say you need? Can you pay us back the money you say that you need? Can you, what are you talking about? Who are you right now? What are you asking me? You see the reactions on these people's faces when you're asking them questions, and or even they're asking you questions. And ladies and gentlemen, it's a whole nother world. Why? It's safe to say when an individual has managed more than 25 million, $50 million, they kind of walk a little different. So maybe sure they walk a little different. If you only knew how much they walk a little different. It's one of those things, you know, we were raised right, and so many people, they're not hungry, man. So we'll give you a hungry moment, Trust Christian, that when there's someone that speaks, they're on the opposite side of the room. We want to speak to them, but guess what? They have a crowd around them. They're walking. Okay, great. When we get to them, they still have a small crowd, and you always want to be. Even some of the investors, major investors, say you still don't want to be a prick because they have families and they don't want you to be around their family and get caught slipping. So it's always good to be solid. You know, be solid. Be solid. So, we get up to this individual. This guy probably worked for some of the major, financial institutions in the world, top five, top 10 type deal, at least top 10 for sure. Financial institutions. It's just for his namesake nowadays. And so, you get around these individuals and you they could have managed they've managed billions, ladies and gentlemen. And so when you say manage, it's just being honest, ladies and gentlemen, for major institutions and for their families. So this is actually a third generational wealth family guy. So we definitely wanted to get in contact with them. This is somebody we wanted to put in contact with the vault trustees possibly. Why? Because they're private equity. They're moving in the hedge fund. They come from financial institution background, institutional investment banking background. So very clean, very sharp. But once again, third generation. Once again, just doing it right, and very available. But at the same time, you gotta meet people at the right place at the right time. And so, even when we met this individual, first thing you know, you walk up to them and they're already walking. Like, okay, wow, and they're walking and talking with someone else, so you gotta walk and talk with them. Okay, and then you walk it, and then they finish talking to that person, and someone else is either there waiting already, or you know how the game goes. So you get there, and then they're still walking and talking to people as they move. And so it's like, man, some people can say, oh man, I'm not walking behind nobody like that. I'm not gonna chase behind no man. Who is this man? I ain't chasing behind no man. Trust Christian in the vault. I ain't walking behind no man like that. Who is this man? I don't even know this man. He walking and he got people talking and I don't need to. Right. Okay. So it probably happened for easily over 5 minutes. I mean, you see how long that was. That was a quality 60-second intervals, and it could have been longer. So it just depends now. How long are you willing to be able to have that conversation that you need? Because you know that if you just be patient, you could actually have a conversation with that person. Like sometimes if you get in their eyesight, you can have that conversation. They'll see you, they'll acknowledge you, they'll see you, they'll give you the like, okay, I'm about to talk to you in a second. And so a lot of people, when they hear this conversation that we're having, once again, they say, oh, I ain't trying to walk behind no man. I ain't walking behind no woman and trying to talk to them. They work for some major institution. They might mentor me. Hold on, what? They might mentor you. Right. So, just, waited our turns that people say. And then at the end of the day, able to connect, shake the hand, bam, bam, slickety slam. Here's my number. Here's my connecting on the social aspect as far as the LinkedIn. Bam, bam. Okay, I have your email. Bam, bam. I'll connect with you. Lo and you behold, these individuals are traveling through airports and they're literally connecting with you. They just couldn't connect with you fully there, but they got a social connection with you, so they can connect with you. Now, they can even almost text you or they can email you. You can almost email them a deal. Why? Because they're looking at deals every day. When our trustees go back and listen to what we're going to provide to them, they're going to hear some individuals were hearing 3 deals a year. Now they're hearing 3 deals a week. Some people were hearing 40 deals a year. Now they're hearing 40 deals a month, 40 deals a week. See how the appetite for people having looking for release capital right now should be up. It should be a free for all. And it is. Huh. We don't want to lie to you. You got to get your hands dirty. Even if you came out with millions, inflation's gonna make your dollar worth nothing. So if you stay in the thousands as 100,000 there, you're never gonna be wealthy because you gotta have millions to be wealthy, and it's gotta be saved. It's got to be stored in some type of hard asset. We're not giving financial advice, legal advice. We're just saying, how are you going to say that you're liquid net worth? What are you going to say? You got it in your house? You got a $30 million house, a $20 million house? Some people are going to have $20 million in assets. They're going to have a business in $20 million assets. Right. But it's not as liquid as we're talking about. It's a business. You have to sell off to an institution. The private wealth game. What are you looking for? Do you know your structure? Oh man, I know I'm in trusteeship, trust Christian in the vault. Here we go. I'm in trusteeship, trust Christian in the vault. I don't know when to sign manager or trustee, right? That's important to know when to sign properly. What is it? Most people not thinking business. It's not easy not to think business. It's too hard to think business, right? No, it's not. It's a mindset. You heard people in the room as well say, oh yeah, uh, it's a mixed one, Sometimes you'll get asset manager, sometimes you'll get the actual family member that's second or third generation speaking on behalf of their family and their asset manager. You get obviously a lot of asset managers more than anything. It's what you're getting a lot of nowadays. So, asset managers just generically meaning that they are not managing just only their family assets. And even some of the biggest investors in the room had funds that were, or institutions that were managing groups of other institutional families or things of that nature, their assets. So, very interesting situation for sure to see, who's in the room and who's, trust Christian. We see these people. We say, hey, look, if you go in there with intention, you could slam dunk it. But if you don't go in there with intention, how you gonna slam dunk it? People say, "Oh man, what if I don't have a business idea?" Are you going in there to learn something? Where are you at in your journey? Where are you at in your process? Many? Are we talking to the 20% of the vote or the 80%? The rule applies. But we just want the trustees to know that they're going to be in for a treat. And it's going to be the resource that we're going to provide for them from this conference. So if you want to get those resources, Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, it's Christian at trustchristian.com. Christian at trustchristian.com. Look forward to hearing from you. And so Man, it was one of those things, man. You go to these conferences and you would think they get better and better. We could say it was definitely a great one. Man, if y'all knew how great it was. When you hear people that are first gen and they were able to become a billionaire. And that's so funny because so many people wonder, can I become a billionaire in this lifetime? And you got these old guys. These old guys. The older guys are going to take longer than the newer guys because of the velocity of money nowadays. That's how we should be thinking. That's how we thinking. Yeah. At the end of the day, how many people are thinking like that? They're not. The velocity of capital means you have to be near it. You have to be able to touch it. Ladies and gentlemen, it was incredible to be able to be in a room where you know you can get your deals funded. And if you're not in rooms where you can get your deals funded, you know what room you're in. And we just encourage people to get out to the events. For the trustees that got the resources, y'all know what time it is. It's going to be an incredible listening. And we even going to do our best to provide some slides because we actually have some pictures of some slides. So we're going to give, trustees that are in the private sector. It's going to be incredible, ladies and gentlemen, going into 2025. Just being able to take a ride and get things done. It's going to be a good one. And if you can lock in and do the small things, otherwise trustees are going to be marred in the mirror of mildew instead of barbecuing, having a festive time. So we're doing end of the year consultations. Christian at trustchristian.com. Christian at trustchristian.com. Trustees definitely gonna reach out. It's the end of the year. Distribution time. People know what time it is. Need to make sure that you're doing everything right at the end of the year. Make sure that this is going to be an interesting end of the year. For trustees again. Especially the ones that thought they had to hand over some information for interest in the beneficiary. So we're gonna see where this game goes. Everybody always talks about what's the difference between public and private, and then we get to it now, and what they say, some people have acquiesced. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going into a very important time right now in the world, and the private sector is primed for investment, just like the public sector is primed for investment. And we encourage you all to have a deal, but you need to have multiple deals. Sometimes people say, "Oh, Trust Christian Vote only need to have one deal." Hey, you ain't know you ain't supposed to have no one deal. You gotta have more than one deal. Of course, you gotta have more than one deal. Oh man, how am I going to do all of that? Right. So you got to start with one at a time, but you got to have, we don't even want to say you got to. It's just what some people do. Some people have multiple deals, and that's what's good for some people. But at the end of the day, hey, there's a lot of money out there. We could almost say you don't have to work for somebody because there's so much money. You can start a business and sell to the other billions that don't want to work yet for themselves. So, interesting philosophy, ladies and gentlemen. The Private Wealth Conference. It was one to be remembered. When you go back and you think, how am I able to be in the room with such great people? It's because you're vibrating right. You got to be eating right. You got to be consuming the right information to get there. Because it's one of those things in your mind where you said, I'm not going to not be there. You said you're going to be there. And you get there. Get there if you can. Appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, it's Christian at trustchristian.com. Look forward to hearing from you. Peace and joy.